Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Qu'est-ce que vous fichez là toutes les deux?
Rien.
The pod bay doors are open. Thank you very much for joining us once again. I'm your host, Doug Heller, film critic and film historian for TalkMovieToMe.com. Here, as always, with my co-host, Jerry Dean Roberts, film critic for ArmchairCinema.com and ArmchairOscars.com. How are you today, Jerry?
I won't have any regrets.
Today, since this isn't an often quoted film, we're kicking off Shocktober this year.
Hey, welcome to Shocktober month.
Hey!
Second annual Shocktober month.
We're kicking off Shocktober with
Going to France.
the French Hitchcock, Henri-George Cluzot, and his 1955 masterpiece Diabolique, which
Translates to the devils.
yes, and boy howdy. I mean, the impact of this picture you can feel in Hitchcock, you can feel all over. My second choice, I was kicking around either this or Wages of Fear from Cluzot, because Wages of Fear is amazing, but it's not really a horror movie. It's just like a nail biter.
Actually, that's what this is.
Yeah.
This is a. This happens. This used to happen all the time. It doesn't quite happen as much anymore. When Americans used to go to foreign films,
Mm-hmm.
and foreign films were sold to American audiences. I think if the marketing would get behind foreign films, more people would go to them
Mm-hmm.
and would distribute them, wider, because foreign films don't come to America as in the same way that they used to.
No, they don't. And if they do, they don't come to many other places other than like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles.
There used to be a time following, it was right on top of the independent film boom in the early 90s, when people started going back to foreign films.
Mm-hmm.
And then that dropped off
Right.
at the end of the millennium.
Now, up here in Pittsburgh, we have a large population of Indians that
Yep.
have immigrated, and so we get a lot of Indian movies, Bollywood movies and stuff. That's the most I usually see here. We don't usually get a lot of the continental European films, but we do get a lot of Bollywood stuff.
We get a lot of foreign films if they are, if they're making noise.
Hmm.
You'll rarely ever, and also occasionally we will get Korean films,
Mm.
and we will get Spanish language films,
Mhm.
because we have a large population of Hispanics and Koreans, and but they usually come to one theater in town.
We have a couple of art houses that are run by Pittsburgh filmmakers that will get the sometimes some foreign language films, but they might play for like a week.
Yeah. But this movie came out in 1955, came to America, and really took America by storm. Really, a lot of people who'd never seen a foreign film went to see this because they had heard that it was the most terrifying thing.
And it's its shockwaves can be felt even in through Hitchcock through Psycho. There's a lot
Hitchcock
of
wanted
this.
to remake this.
Huh?
Hitchcock wanted to remake this.
Ooh. That would have been
And
cool.
he asked if he could remake it. And the guys who wrote this film instead wrote him a treatment for Vertigo instead.
Hmm.
So instead of a remake of this, we got Vertigo. So
I'll take it.
I'll take it. Because this film feels Hitchcock enough.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
When was the first time you saw this?
It actually wasn't that long ago. It was just before I had decided to name it as my opening for Shocktober. I've had the Blu-ray on Criterion for about 2 years, and I'm like, boy, it's time for me to watch this. I bet this would make a good Shocktober thing. And then I watched it, and I'm like, yeah, that's going to be my pick. And because I knew that you were doing Repulsion, I'm like, let's throw in Shaun of the Dead too, because we're gonna need a laugh after these two.
We're gonna need a laugh after this. Well, I saw this in 1995 in a retro theater.
Ooh.
What do you think? And I did not know. Oh, by the way, I want to tell our listeners, if you've never seen this movie, you need to turn off this episode and go watch the movie.
This is not spoiler free. We are ignoring Monsieur Cluzot's plea to not discuss the film after we've seen
That's how the movie ends.
with similar to the whole ad campaign with Psycho. So there are spoilers ahead, and this film is dependent upon, the impact is dependent upon you not knowing
Right.
all the twists and turns, because to borrow a line from Leonard Maltin about Wild Things, there are more twists in this thing than in a pretzel factory.
You know, the greatest quote about spoilers ever was on the TV show King of the Hill. It turns out that yelling fire in a crowded theater is not the worst thing you could say. It's Bruce Willis is dead. Yeah, but this movie's like, we're telling you now, stop here, because there are massive plot points, and it's dependent upon you not knowing. So we will not hesitate. We will show no mercy. So continuing on, I saw this without knowing what it was about. I knew it was a horror film. I knew that it had been successful, and I love French films anyway. So I went to see this. I did not know the plot twist.
I didn't either when I saw it.
It was shocking.
Yeah, it is.
It wasn't as shocking when I thought back through the film, but we'll get there. So, Le Diabolique is... It's kind of strange. It's kind of weird. It opens with this kind of bizarre... Well, not bizarre, but music typical of a thriller in the 1950s. You know, it opens with the kind of bombastic, kind of thing. And we're looking at the scrolling credits. And it's weird because you're not really prepared. This is not technically a horror film. It's more of a thriller than it is.
It's a thriller, but it's my kind of horror movie. it's the boy howdy, this thing could actually happen in a way.
Yeah. But it opens. It's like the music. It's this typical music, and then the music stops, and you hear this children's choir come in singing this creepy. It's like you're watching The Omen.
Yeah.
So
only much better.
Oh, you're not really sure what movie you're about to watch.
You don't. You have no idea. If you're going in cold, which I really recommend you do, it's going to take you off balance.
Right.
All the way through. the main plot that you'd read about if you read a plot synopsis of this is that two women, a wife and her husband's mistress, become friendly and decide to kill the guy because he's a jerk. And he is. He's a horrible person.
She owns, what is her name? Christina?
Yeah.
Played by Vera Cluzot, who was Cluzot's wife, who's also in Wages for him. And she owns a boys' boarding school.
Mm-hmm.
And she's married to Michel, who is, the guy's a monster.
Oh yeah, up one side and down the other. There is no sympathy for this guy at all.
I mean, he has a girlfriend. What is her? I forget.
Who is a teacher there?
Yeah, who's a teacher there? They know each other. But she is played by Oscar winner Simone Signoret, who won an Oscar for Top.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that the entire texture, the entire production design, everything you're looking at, this school is crumbling to dust.
Yeah, it's very, very poorly maintained, and you can tell that even though Christina owns it, Michel runs it and runs it into the ground.
Right. Well, he spends all of her money.
Mm-hmm.
He's always walking around in these tailored suits. He always looks amazing. And the boys look disheveled.
Mm-hmm.
He serves them rotten fish for dinner, and it's just... He screws around on her, and he slaps her around several times in the movie. And can we talk about Michelle for a second? Because we got to talk about this. When I saw this...
It's the worst.
When I saw this for the first time, I have to tell you, when I saw this man, the very first words that popped into my head is, what is Jack Webb doing in this movie? I'm not kidding. The actor who plays, it's not him, but the actor who plays Michel looks just like Jack Webb.
He does.
I mean, it's amazing. He could have played his double. He could have been his stunt double. But anyway, everything that Christina tries to do, he knocks it down.
Mm-hmm.
Thing that she does stand up for herself, but he's this alpha male type, this lion that just kind of trods over everything. And
she doesn't put too big of a fight up because she has a heart condition. So if she
try not to get overstressed.
Right, if she gets overstressed or overexcited, she could have a heart attack and die.
Right, and he knows that.
Yeah. And that's kind of why he's so brash about playing around on her, because he knows if she gets too excited over it, she'll die, and then he can go off with his mistress anyway, which he keeps promising. What's her name? Vera?
Rivera?
No, Nicole.
Nicole. But I was surprised when Nicole comes into the picture, or the information comes into the picture, that she's having an affair with Michel. How casual the whole thing is.
Yeah, the whole school knows.
Yeah.
The teachers know, probably I think even the students know, and it's just...
Oh, he's flagrant about it. I mean,
it's all out in the open, because he is utterly shameless about it. And at first you might think, well, it's France, you know. They've elected people who were having multiple affairs, public affairs, during campaigns. It's not unheard of. But it's not just because they're French. He is just a horrible, horrible human being. If you can even really call him.
Scum,
Yeah.
a three-piece suit. And everything that they do, like I said, because he steals her money, because he lavishes himself with the money that she has, he has this. You can see in the school. You look around, and the school is falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
There's a swimming pool out front that is just it's abandoned.
Yeah, it's not kept. It's
Yeah,
actually a lot of this school kind of looks like the school in The Devil's Backbone that we talked about
yeah.
last year. But that at
They
least
were in
had
the
the
middle of a
Spanish Civil
war.
War.
Yeah, they were in the middle of a war. That was a movie we talked about last October, and at least they had the excuse that they're in the middle of a war. These people are not in the middle of. It's just he's made himself, and he doesn't. He doesn't care about anything
No.
at all.
And he's set himself up as the principal, so he doesn't actually really have to do anything.
Yeah.
Except, spend as little as possible on the upkeep of the place so that he can just have whatever else he wants.
Well, Christina and Nicole have this conversation. They're both tired of being under his boot.
And they're friends.
And they're friends.
Ish.
Ish. Which comes up later. But they start to talk. And when they start to talk, they start to plan.
Mm-hmm.
And someone, I don't remember which one of them, brings up the idea that maybe possibly would be easier on us if he wasn't here.
I think it was Nicole. I think a lot of it was Nicole's pushing.
Which, based on what happens later, based on what comes up later,
makes
a lot of
sense.
sense.
Yes, it does.
Even though what comes up later doesn't make a lot of sense. We'll get there.
It doesn't have to make sense to be terrifying.
It doesn't have to make sense to be terrifying, but it's...
Listen, we're going to be talking about zombies twice this year, so...
Yeah,
and
times.
Wolfman and Dracula,
And,
yeah. So doesn't have to make sense to be kind of scary.
Yeah. So they start to plan and think, well, what if he wasn't here? And they come up with this weird plan. Here's the plan they come up with. They're going to go back to his apartment, or to her apartment, to Nicole's apartment.
Which is like several hours away.
Yeah, it's a train ride away.
Right. She owns this building and she rents out the top floor.
Yeah. They're going to have, because really she doesn't have much. Because it's a tiny apartment. It's like a living room, a bedroom, and a bath, and that's it.
And a kitchen, but it's like she has the first floor, and she rents out the second floor.
Right. But what they do is they decide that they're going to lure him to her apartment because Christina finally tells him, calls him and tells him, "I'm going to divorce you."
Right, and she's at Nicole's, and she's left him, and that's for good, and she's going to divorce him and take, get him off of the bread wagon, I guess, or whatever, as it were.
Got his meal ticket.
Right, there you go. Thank you. Bread wagon? What the?
Bread wagon?
I don't even know what that is. So, she calls, and then he gets obviously upset, and he leaves without telling anybody where he's going, which was their plan.
Yeah.
And they drug the whiskey, knock him out, and drown him in the bathtub.
Yeah, what's funny, though, is when he finally shows up, later on when he finally shows up, when I saw this the first time, I thought he was going to come in the door and just roll over her like a bowling ball.
Right.
And just start beating the hell out of her. Which, based on what we've seen before, would have made perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
But he's one of these people that he's abusive, but yet then tries to be gentle and kind to get what
he wants his abused to feel like he was actually sorry, that he was driven to it by some external means, that I didn't mean it, oh, I'm so sorry,
that kind of crap.
Yeah.
He and he does slap her around.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know what she put in that whiskey, but it was fast acting. Because it's like he
especially considering that I mean, she pours it into the whole bottle. I mean, that must have been some strong sedative.
I love what she does because they're standing there. This is right out of Hitchcock. I mean, Hitchcock had to have been influenced by this. Is when she gives him the whiskey, he takes a drink and he starts to get tired. He starts to stumble around, and he says, "Give me some more whiskey." And she pours half a glass, and he says, "Is that the best you can do?" And she pours more.
Well, see, the great thing about all this, like, first they get the whiskey, and instead of dumping part of it down the sink to make it look for them to get the stuff in, they each pour themselves a drink because it's a really good whiskey.
Right.
They're not going to be able to drink any more of it without passing out.
Well, and also if you notice when they're having that conversation, the way this room is set up is so brilliant because there's a table in the middle of the room
Mm-hmm.
with the whiskey bottle and the glass.
Mm.
It is always just over their shoulder.
Right.
And you're just waiting for him to drink it.
And she tries to stop him from drinking it a couple of times, and then he hits her, and she's like, "Yeah, all right.
Yeah, go ahead."
Here you go.
But the way the camera focuses in on this glass of whiskey is great. And then he falls asleep, and they put him in the bathtub. This movie is tense, by the way.
Yeah.
They put him in this bathtub.
And he kind of starts to struggle.
Pushes his head down, and he wakes up.
Yeah. And she's holding him, and then they put a tarp over him after he's dead.
A tablecloth.
Puts the tablecloth, and then takes a heavy bronze statue from the mantle and sticks it on the chest. Yeah. He is sitting in the water overnight, covered by a plastic tablecloth, weighted down by a heavy brass statue. And
the most ridiculous shot in the whole movie is when they finally pull that tarp off and they look at him. He's slumped over in the bathtub. His eyes are like turned back.
Yeah.
And it looks almost cartoonish. But it's so great because she's like, again, right out of Hitchcock. They've got to get him out of the tub, roll him up in this thing. They put him in a wicker basket.
Mm-hmm. That she says is her dishes that she's going to either sell or whatever.
And the tension of this, because they're trying to run the water in the tub, the tension of this is intercut with the landlord upstairs.
No, the tenants.
The tenants upstairs who are trying to listen to the radio.
And it was like some quiz program or something. It was like, who does she think she is? Like, dude, she owns your house. Like,
yeah.
But the water is the hot water is so loud that it causes a rattling in the pipes. Like it's an older building, and so she's filling up this bathtub and like making all this noise.
Yeah.
And he's getting so upset, and then he ends up helping them take the basket out into their car. To take it back. And this is brilliant, actually. So they drown him. Nowadays, this would not work because they would be able to tell that the body was moved.
Actually, nowadays it wouldn't work because when they did the autopsy on the body, they would do toxicology, and they would be able to tell that she had drugged whiskey.
And also that the lungs were filled with clean water and not pool water.
Right.
But anyway, at the time, this would have worked because... the 50s were only slightly better than the 30s, that if there was a dead body and they saw somebody standing near it, they're like, well, you must have done it because there's nobody else here. Yeah. Like, aren't you going to do forensics? There's no such thing. So they take him back to the school and they dump the body in the pool, which is
Oh, but
not
before they
tended.
do that, there's this
Oh, it starts leaking. And
scene where they're driving back, and first of all, they're getting the other tenant who was complaining to help them with the basket.
and he's all real nice at this point.
Yeah, and the thing is just, well, your basket is overloaded.
Oh yeah, let's take some stuff out of it. They're
Yeah.
like, no, 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 no.
That's where the tension in this movie comes from. The tension is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's nervous laughter kind of funny.
Right.
It's when they stop, I guess to get gas or something, and this guy's coming up to talk to
Well,
to
the
Nicole.
soldier, there's a
Yeah.
soldier who stumbles up. Give me a ride. Give me a lift. If I don't get back to my station, they're gonna,
Right,
I'm gonna
right.
get dropped out of the service or something like that. And she says no, and he crawls in the back.
Right. Because he's drunk, and eventually somebody else gets him out of there, but
Yeah.
terrified that he's gonna open up this basket, and they finally get back at night, roll the body into the pool, and the whole next day.
Oh, there's even a scene where they're trying to get out of the truck, and they're pouring. They're trying to do this, and a light comes on.
Mhm.
They're at the schoolyard, and they're about to push him in, and a light comes on, and they're thinking, "Oh God, I hope he doesn't come to the window." And all of a sudden, you hear the toilet flush, and the light goes off.
Right.
And it's
And then they finally they roll him in, and the whole next day, couple of days, really, um, Christina is a bundle of nerves
yeah.
because he's supposed to float to the top.
They're waiting for him to float to the top so he can be discovered, so it can be written off as an accident.
Right. So days go by and nothing happens, and so they kind of engineer a thing that they need to drain the pool. And then they figure that the body will be at the bottom.
Yeah, and again, there's all this stuff about this kid decides to dive in. And no, they were trying to get the ball.
No, the ball goes in, but then she throws the keys to the kid to get out a rake or something to pull it in, but the keys fall in and they sink to the bottom.
And the kid jumps in and he pulls up his lighter.
Yeah, the guy's lighter.
And he
But
says it's like chocolate soup down there.
Like, yeah, he can't see anything. And they drain the pool, and there's no body.
Yeah, nothing in there.
Nothing in there, but they get the keys back, but there's no body. And then his suit comes back
From the cleaners.
from the cleaners. The exact suit that he was wearing comes back from the cleaners.
Well, who sent the suit to the cleaners? Well, Mr. Michelle did.
And then there's this kid who insists that the principal punished him for something. And then he gets in trouble for lying because they're like, no, he's not here. We know he's not here. We haven't seen him. And have you seen him? Yeah, I saw him. And it sets up this whole thing that...
By the way, this poor kid.
That kid is just...
He's a little kid, so he gets bullied.
He's like 6.
He's like 6. And he gets bullied, and he keeps... The running gag is that he keeps getting in trouble for telling lies that we in the audience know are not lies.
Mm-hmm.
And...
he keeps getting in trouble, and I love the scene near the end. Like, she has an attack. She panics herself into a heart problem.
Right.
Further.
This one thing
Her anxiety is just on nth level.
This movie is playing because there's evidence that he's still alive because the body has disappeared. And there's
Body's
all this
disappeared.
evidence.
There's lights on in his old office. There's the suit coming back from the cleaners, and an apartment or a hotel room in town under his name that they say that they've never seen him, that he must go in and out at night or whatever, but he's had it there for a while, and there's all this stuff just ramping up until she finally gets to the office, and she thinks that it's the ghost.
There's this there's a body that turns up.
Mm-hmm.
In the
Oh
city.
God, yeah, and then she
And
goes
the
into
body
the
was
city.
unclothed. That's where we get that detective.
Uh-huh.
That detective that just keeps pushing. I mean, he keeps just on and on and on and on and on.
He is, I think, the prototype of Columbo.
He is. He is.
'Cause I just kept waiting for him to go, there's just one more thing.
I kept being reminded also of Detective Kinderman in The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Like this older detective who has a very calm manner with people in being able to accuse them of something, but not really accuse them of something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a possibility. It's extremely remote, and he's very casual about it. And the body that turns up, she goes to the morgue.
To try to identify it, because naked, suit came back from the cleaners.
Right. But why would a person, if he's going to commit suicide, why would he take his clothes off?
And put him to the cleaners.
Right.
How would he drop off the stuff at the cleaners naked?
Yeah. But they bring in this box and they open it up. And by the way, the box that they're flopping around, the guy must weigh about 8 pounds if they're flopping the box around that much.
Yeah.
You don't think about things like that in this movie, but it's not him.
Right. She says it's not him, and they're
it's
like,
not, because we can see him.
"You're right." And they're like, "Well, why would you think it was?" And she's like, "Well, he went missing, and this, that, and the other, and I thought this might be him."
Yeah.
And so this Columbo-like detective latches on to her as like he's the former police chief or something, that he's just picking up odds and ends as a private eye now. And
like Columbo, he just keeps coming back with questions. It's just one more thing.
yeah, and it's funny. My wife and I talked about Columbo when it first came back on Netflix, and we were starting to rewatch all those stuff. He has a penchant for just attaching himself to the person that hates him the most, that probably did it.
Yeah.
And he just makes himself a nuisance.
Personally, I think he knows she did it. Because if you're talking to her and you're asking her questions, she gets more and more nervous the more questions he asks.
Mm-hmm.
And when she's sitting there and he's talking to her and she says, he's zeroing in on exactly what's going on. He's zeroing in on these little points. Why would a man in a suit, why would you take off your clothes if you're going to commit suicide and send him to the cleaners? All this stuff. He's zeroing in on what's going on.
Right.
He
Only
just doesn't have the final piece of the puzzle.
He's zeroing in on what we don't find out until the end.
Right.
He's piecing a whole lot of it together, that if you're involved in the story and you're kind of with Christine, which I don't know how you can not be with Christina.
Yeah.
She's a very sympathetic character.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually the only likable person in this whole movie.
I guess you could be sympathetic with Nicole for a long time.
Sorta, but I don't know. She seems cold right from the start. And she did take up with a married man.
This is true. But let's get to the end. This is where the spoilers come from. hears something going on the typewriter. She gets up, she goes in the typewriter, his name's written all over it.
Mm-hmm.
Goes in the bathroom. And not surprisingly, if you've been following this, he's laying in the bathtub and he rises from the water.
Mm-hmm. With the eyes still kind of rolled back.
Yeah.
And then he takes them out. They were contacts.
Yeah.
And he gets out and he goes up to her and she just dies of a fear-induced heart attack.
Slumps over from a heart attack. He goes out of the bathroom. And Nicole is waiting.
Yep. So they set it up to get her money.
Yeah. They set it up together.
To make it look like natural causes because everybody knew she had a heart condition. That's like perfect murder, but not perfect execution.
Now, this was a shock. Now, you have to understand, the way the end of this movie plays out, of course, if you're listening to this, hopefully you've seen it. It's a shock on top of a shock on top of a shock.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is they get arrested.
Yeah.
Because the cop overhears them talking about their plan.
Right. After she dies, the detective comes in with his one more question and hears them talking, and he's like, so that's exactly what was going on. And then they get arrested.
And then the next day, everybody's being shuffled out of the boarding school because it's being shut down. And the little boy, this poor little guy, does something, I don't remember what he says, but apparently the teacher told him something, and he's the person who's been punishing him says, "You're lying. Go stand in the corner," or whatever. And it's an indication that Christina is still living.
Yeah.
He faked a heart attack.
Right.
Now.
So was she playing everybody all the way through? Does she not know? Is she a ghost? We don't know. That's...
The problem is that I have with this. At what point did she know that this was going on? I watched the movie again. I kind of went through the movie again this morning. And I was trying to figure out, there's got to be a point at which she knew something was going on, because either she had a heart problem and didn't die, and that's when she found out, or she knew before.
Right.
So there's some point here at which she knew. I don't think she faked it. I think she actually did have a heart problem.
Mm-hmm.
And she figured out what was going on. How did she fake her death? Because obviously she came back to the school.
Mm-hmm.
They took her away.
Yeah.
And she somehow circumvented and came back to the school. I'm not sure exactly how it happened.
It could have happened off screen. The detective might have, in a scene that we did not see, could have kind of brought her in on it and decided to triple cross the double crossers. And he took her away, and then she came back.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And even still, if Michelle and Nicole were going to kill her, this is a long way to go.
Yeah, this is just a very... I mean, on one hand, though, yeah, it's a long way to go about it. But on the other hand, it's really typical Michelle, because he is torturing her.
I mean, it would
like
have been
nobody's
just as easy.
Business.
It would have been just as easy to throw her a surprise party.
or hide behind the door and go, boo!
Or just come around the door, boo!
Yeah. But I think, she's had, like, spells before, but it would take something that was really monumentous to push her over the edge finally, and they had to work her nerves up to a point.
Right.
I guess, but it's still, yeah, it is a long roundabout way of going about doing this. But
It's a cool movie, but it's still you're thinking about this afterwards.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as Psycho. When you start to really think about it, it's like this doesn't make a lot of sense, but you know what? Who cares?
Well, but Psycho locks in a little easier because it's a crazy person who's killing people. And I think this movie informs Psycho a lot.
A lot.
There's a motif of water in this movie that just runs all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the opening credits, you see a pool of running water.
Mm-hmm.
And water is the thing that goes through. And it's like, from the bathtub and the pool and the rain and all of this stuff, water is a motif that goes all the way through this flowing narrative of this film. But I love a movie like this because it plays with you.
It does. It takes. It gives you information that makes you expect something, while giving you the information that is basically telling you don't expect what you think is going to happen. But it makes that a little less obvious, and then once it does happen, you're like, oh, I bet I should have picked that up 20 minutes ago when they said this, that, and the other. It's like rewatching The Sixth Sense and noticing that the chairs don't move when Bruce Willis sits down and stuff like that. Nobody actually interacts with him except.
You know what I love? What I loved when that movie came out, there was a documentary on the DVD for The Sixth Sense, at which Shyamalan basically reveals to you things you didn't notice.
Yeah, I watched that. Yeah.
What I love is when that DVD came out, all these jackasses were like, "Oh, I spotted all that the first time." No,
yeah.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
You were just as buffaloed as the rest of us. Don't even try that.
Yeah. But now with The Village, you could see everything that was coming miles away.
And even when you found out, you didn't care.
Exactly.
But I mean, when they pry the lid off of this thing, when you finally, I love this. I love the triple axle that they do. It's like this triple surprise. The fact that he's still alive, he was in collusion with Nicole, and then she ended up pulling a snow job on both of them. I love this. I love the way this movie ends. It's just not logical. It's just you go back and you think, wait a minute.
but fear and anxiety tend to not be particularly logical either.
That's true.
So in that instance, I would say that this works perfectly. And you don't care because you're so tied up with what's going on and everything. It doesn't matter that it doesn't make sense.
Right.
There's plenty of great movies that really make no sense whatsoever.
Right.
Many of them are based on Raymond Chandler books.
Star Wars. I mean, I love Star Wars, but I'm still, I every time I see that scene where Luke is sitting on the Millennium Falcon and he's all broken up about this old man that he's known for a day and a half, and is being comforted by a woman who just lost her entire civilization.
Yeah.
I mean,
in Luke's defense, he has known of Obi-Wan his whole life and has had multiple interactions with him throughout his life, but just actually got to talk to him at length. Yes, for a day and a half. But yes, her whole planet.
Being comforted by a woman whose entire civilization,
her entire planet,
gone.
Her parents, everyone she's ever known, every place she's ever been on her planet. Her planet is literally just crumbs in space. And she's like, oh, it'll be okay.
Yeah. You don't want to think about that kind of logic. But,
no.
I mean...
Because, Luke's sitting there and he's like, I just can't believe he's gone. And you just want Leia to go, you know who I can't believe are gone? Everyone on Alderaan!
How about the cries of Alderaan, you jerk? my favorite is Raiders of the Lost Ark. The plot hole, the fact that Indiana Jones, you could completely take Indiana Jones out of that movie,
and everything would still probably happen exactly the same.
yeah, it wouldn't make any difference because the whole thing would happen the same exact way.
Actually, it's arguable that if they didn't get the medallion, that they never would have found the Ark in the first place without him.
Well, they would have come back and taken it from her.
That's
They would have come back and taken it. They would have gotten it anyway, and then but Indiana Jones has no impact on this because they would have opened it and they would have all died.
Right, exactly.
But logic. I love logic in movies, but sometimes
there's a saying called the willful suspension of disbelief,
right,
wherein you get caught up with the story and you don't care that it's not plausible or that it doesn't really make a lot of sense because it's so well put together.
Yeah. Kind of like at this time last year, we were talking about Poltergeist, and we were wondering why is this house haunted,
and none of the rest of them are.
If it's under this haunted if it's over this haunted graveyard, nobody else's house is being affected by this.
But they're at like the Hellmouth.
They're apparently the Hellmouth. And when their house gets sucked into oblivion, nothing else gets sucked into.
Nothing else happens. Yeah.
You don't want to think about this, but
so I mean, yeah, but this is so. The tension is so palpable in this.
Does this movie feel like a dream to you? It always seems it's done in gorgeous black and white, and it's absolutely, it feels like a dream, especially when he comes out of that, especially when he rises out of that bathtub. It's almost dreamlike. There's a glow that Vera Cluzot has on her face. I don't know if it was just because of the black and white or what. There's a glow to her. And again, this movie feels like a dream. Like this weird, disconnected dream of this situation that you can't get out of.
Right. It uses a lot of nightmare logic. Like, you kill him, you see him die, and then you dump him in the pool, but then he's not there. And then the suit comes back.
From the cleaners.
And then, there's sounds from his office, and then, he gets out of the, it's like a lot of this. But if it's a dream or a nightmare, whose is it?
Yeah.
Is it Nicole's? Is it?
I would say if it's a dream, it's probably Christine's, because.
But she dies at the end.
But she doesn't die at the end.
Well, maybe she does. Maybe she's a ghost.
It's when she can manipulate her own dream.
Mm-hmm. She's lucid dreaming.
Right. But I absolutely love this movie.
This movie's so good.
If you don't think about it afterwards.
Even if you do, it's still really scary and entertaining, and just the whole concept of, first of all, the wife and the mistress plotting to kill the guy, and then all of a sudden having that be, so they're kind of double crossing him, and then the mistress triple crosses her friend, who obviously she was not friends with. She was putting that on. Yeah. This was like a really long game con going on. This is
overly complicated.
Yeah, but I think it's magnificent, and I think it's a great way to kick off Shocktober here. So, what kind of recommendations do you have?
Well, my recommendation is going to sound very strange, but I want to recommend don't see the remake.
Yeah, don't.
I saw the remake when it came out. It was during the days when people gave a damn about Sharon Stone. She plays the Christine role. Chaz Palminteri plays the Michelle role. His name is Guy, and the only person in the movie that does very well is Isabella Johnny. Plays the Chris, who plays no, Sharon Stone plays the Nicole.
I was gonna say Sharon Stone doesn't seem like a Christina type.
Isabella Johnny plays plays the Christine part, who does very well
Mm-hmm.
in a movie that really should not have been made.
Yeah.
I get the feeling I was watching this. Like I said, I saw this. I was kind of blipping through it while I was doing research for this. I have a feeling, and I got this from the 1955 version,
mm-hmm.
that another director at another time, these two women would have been lovers.
Oh yeah.
That would have been an easy way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I sensed in the remake that's the direction they wanted to go with it.
Mm.
And if you're going to update it, that's probably, you want to change the story up, that's probably a good way to go.
Right.
But the remake tries to one-up the reveal
Mm-hmm.
by literalizing it. There's a suggestion at the end of Cluzot's version where you don't see Christine again.
Right.
You just hear that she's been around. No, you actually see her in the remake.
I'm sure.
It doesn't work. The remake is boring. The other one, yeah, but my recommendation is after you see this for Cluzot, you have to see Wages of Fear.
Yes. That's actually my favorite of his.
It's a fantastic movie, and it also stars Fiora Cluzot, his wife.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got?
Of course, the ones that we mentioned, Wages of Fear was going to be my top one, because I love that movie. But also Cluzot's Le Corbeau, The Raven, from 1943, excellent picture. And I would say Vertigo too. If you track between the two, Cluzot and Hitchcock, around the same time, they were making a lot of similar pictures. That's why they called him the French Hitchcock. Except
You can tell that here.
oh yeah, but except Cluzot was more widely accepted as an artist in his time than Hitchcock was.
Yeah.
Which is sad. There's still a whole lot of Hitchcock that we're going to end up talking about later. But what do we have coming up?
Next week, we're going further into the mouth of madness.
Jeez.
Next week, we are talking about our very first film by Roman Polanski, 1965. I don't even know what to call it. It is a bit of insanity called Repulsion. It is about a woman, an emotionally fragile woman, played by Catherine Deneuve, who is left alone in her sister's apartment over the weekend, and she goes nuts.
Oh no, it's like 2 weeks.
What goes on inside that apartment is insane.
Yes, it is. It is the destabilization of an already unstable mind.
I want to tell our listeners, if you are listening to the sound of my voice and you have not seen Repulsion and you want to prepare yourself for our episode, do this. Watch the movie with the lights off in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
That is how you get the full effect of this movie.
Right.
You can't get the same effect in broad daylight or with the lights on.
No. And the funny thing is that it's still terrifying in broad daylight with the lights on.
And it works better with the lights off.
It does. It's just it's terrifying. So, and then after that, Shaun of the Dead, like I mentioned, and then our...
Then we're going to do a horror medley. I've chosen 5 films from the Universal Horror stock. I've chosen Dracula's Daughter. I've chosen Dracula, The Mummy, The Invisible Man, and The Wolfman. We're going to kind of celebrate the Universal horror pictures, and then we're going to end this thing with George Romero's great Night of the Living Dead.
Yes. And so that about wraps it up here for us on the Pod Bay Doors. We thank you very much for listening. You can find all of our back episodes on www.thepodbaydorspodcast.wordpress.com. You can throw a tip into our virtual tip jar on Patreon at pod_bay. We're also on Twitter at pod_bay. Subscribe to our channel here and spread the word if you like what we're doing. We'd really appreciate it. And I think now the Pod Bay doors are now closed.
Mission has been completed.
He's stone cold dead in the market. He's stone cold dead in the market. He's stone cold dead in the market. I killed nobody but me husband.
Last night I went out drinking. When I came home I gave her a beating. So she caught up the rolling pin and went to work on my head till she barged it in. I lie cold dead in the market. Stone cold dead in the market. I lie cold dead in the market. She killed nobody but her husband.
I lick him with the pot and the frying pan. I lick him with the pot and the frying pan. I lick him with the pot and the frying pan. And if I kill him, he had it coming. Man, he's stone cold dead in the market. He's stone cold dead in the market. He's stone cold dead in the market. I killed nobody but me husband.
My family they swearing to kill her. My family they swearing to kill her.
His family they swearing to kill me. And if I kill him, he had it coming.
Here lie cold dead in the market, child. Cold dead in the market, child. I lie cold dead in the market. She killed nobody but her husband.
There's one thing that I am sure, he ain't going to beat me no more. So I tell you that I doesn't care if I was to die in the electric chair. Man, he's stone cold dead in the market. Stone cold dead in the market. He's stone cold dead in the market. I killed nobody but me husband.
Hey child, I'm coming back and boss you on your head one more time.
No, man, you can't do that. You stone cold dead in the market. Murder, stone cold dead in the market. The criminal is stone cold dead in the market. I